Ajay, how have how have your sales profiles changed since the time you launched it? Because you do both. You do sell directly from your own website as well as through third party platforms and distributors, and help us understand that evolution as a founder.
So I would say being on the digital forefront, which is selling direct to consumer on Shopify through our website, was a very essential part of our growth journey, right? How does a brand is like a baby? You're born, you learn basic habits, and you're selling to a consumer. What is the best way to get to know your customer and who they are is when you have access to them directly. That is what being purely D2C in the first 3 years of our journey allowed us to do, allowed us to take that critical feedback to evolve our product, to reiterate again and again to get the product market fit correct for our TG that we were trying to sell. Because
The
otherwise, you
target group.
imagine exactly our target group. So imagine otherwise, I'm selling on a brick and mortar store. I do not know who my customer is. I look at sales, they're not going down. I just keep experimenting. Here, I have a list of my cohort of users which do really well and a cohort of users that do not do well. So, how do I build a nuanced approach to what my product is supposed to be to that particular customer? And that's how I position myself when I scale, is what the digital channel allowed me to do. So, I always have treated it as a channel to get to know my customer and evolve my products where my experimentation happens. When I have it locked down, now I can go to a retail store, I will go to a marketplace, I will go to a quick commerce, and that means I will make less mistakes at a larger scale. So it's
Got it.
been very helpful from that lens, and we that's a view we've had for the majority of our journey. And then unfortunately, like, we were in the golden era of digital ads from 2017 till 2020. Facebook was, you still had to pay meta tax, but it was not draconian in the way that it just suddenly changed when the big boys started. Its demand and supply, the CPMs went through the roof. So 2021 is when we were forced to be less reliant on digital as a channel because it made no financial sense anymore.
You mean
But
the ads
luck,
became much more expensive for you to justify the returns?
exactly. So for us to justify any form of acquisition through that channel, so we had to
Sorry,
taper it
Ajay,
down.
before you go on, you said for the first 3 years you were largely or primarily direct to consumer, or
90% direct to
got it.
consumer.
And
Yeah,
could you give us a sense of where that split is? I'm not asking for a very exact number, but generally,
S-
how is it?
sub 10%. No, sub 10%, but that's a natural evolution of the
You're saying the
consumer
pie is
journey.
growing,
Yeah,
and as the pie grows, you it grows much
No, I
faster.
believe what Ajay, I mean, I'll let Ajay speak, but I believe what Ajay is suggesting is that as the brand gets bigger, your customers start to want to discover you and buy you from their own preferred channels.
because you have to understand the consumer, right? A consumer goes with intent to a marketplace to shop a particular category.
Correct.
He does not go with intent to sleepyowl.co searching, because if we want him to come with intent, we have to pay a lot of ad dollars to get him there. So once we've done our early days of learning and built a right product that we feel for this particular TG works, then we need to be at a marketplace where discovery is much easier and the user is with coming with intent, and that's what we've discovered as well.
Let me interject, right? I think we done a lot of work on this space and thinking about it. And it really is category specific and purchase specific. So if you are in a coffee category, which is a frequent purchase, and coffee is tends to be purchased as part of a weekly, monthly shopping for your groceries. And someone who does it wants to buy in that basket coffee, milk, sugar, pepper, masala, rice, noodles. It's a very different thing than when I want to buy a bed. Because I want to buy a bed. I don't need assortment and I don't have a basket. So in that extreme example where I buy a product once every 10 years with high intent, I'm willing to spend time to go to whichever direct mattress company or not that I want. If I'm going to buy coffee every week and I know it's part of a basket of 30 products, imagine me going to Sleepy Owl to buy coffee going to Epigamia to buy yogurt, going to Viva to buy. I'll go to 30 websites, put in 30 OTPs, 30 pins. There is no consumer who will do that and add friction to his or her life. So as we at DSGCP do a lot of work on consumer buying behavior, we need to understand our job as a brand is to make consumers' life very easy. If that consumer has a particular sort of preference on how they purchase, buy a particular product, and keep in mind that same product might be bought differently on different occasions. So for the usual shopping, I'll go once a week, online, offline, up to you. But if it's 2 in the morning and I've got a hunger pang, I want to deliver now, I might look direct. So keep that in mind, because if we look at only coffee, the discussion is going to be very grocery focused, which may not apply across the board.
Fair enough. Sorry, I'll just broaden this a little. So fair. I mean, what I was thinking about when you were talking about this, Deepak, is that you're right. The extreme example is like a mattress, but I can imagine tons of categories that are in the middle and even nuances of categories. So, for example, Rohin and I, we are recording from Indiranagar in Bangalore, and just very close by this road is the Mokabara outlet, which is again a D2C brand that sells bags, which a lot of people, when it started, were like, yeah, this is one of those quote unquote Bangalore starter kit kind of brands where it became really popular inside Bangalore and then it expanded out. I can think of brands like, say, sneakers. I imagine sneakers don't. There are many sneaker brands that are new age D2C brands that are not there on a Myntra, like a Gully Labs, etc. So you have many of these categories, and even within that, there are subcategories. So if you take something like, say, ethnic wear, within apparel. So I imagine that that does not need to have a marketplace. That has a much more pull as a standalone brand. So I get the argument of it being category specific and occasion specific.
And also what Ajay said, right? I mean, you may not be a D2C brand right now, but that's where you started. You said the first 3 years you got 90% of your revenue from your own channel, right? But my problem in the Indian context, and that is a function of the category you operate in, as Deepak mentioned, you begin as an Amazon or Flipkart or Nykaa or Myntra brand, right? Are you really, so the whole idea of D2C is that the customer is loyal to you, you get a lot of data about the customer, right? The customer profile, right? If you get the majority of your sales, even in your early years from Amazon or Flipkart, are you actually going to get, say as an electronics brand, are you actually going to get a lot more data than you would from Reliance Digital or Chroma? I doubt it.
I
And
don't even think you'll get data, Sita. You won't even build loyalty, to be
absolutely.
honest with you. They will give you scale, and that is a problem a lot of brands have today. And Deepak always uses us as an example that our brand is bigger than our scale, and the other flip side is the brands have very large scale. But you've never heard of them, right? But those were marketplace brands. Uh,
But even when it comes to marketplaces, there are brands that choose to list themselves as sellers, right? But then a lot of these brands, if you go online and look for their SKUs, they're all sold by Apparel or whatever replaced Cloud Tails,
ARIPL
right?
and
Right.
yeah.
So you're selling on a marketplace through third-party sellers, so you have zero control and zero visibility into the consumer.
So there's a category. I mean, Deepak, it's interesting what you used. You use the mattress category as an example, and Praveen, you use, let's say, shoes or luggage. For me, I mean, these categories are all on kind of one end of the spectrum, because the frequency spectrum is how often do you buy luggage, how often do you buy a mattress or a sneaker, right? Correct. And then on this end of the spectrum, one of the examples that I want to kind of ask everyone about is, let's take meat and fish, right? It's a high frequency category. There's licious, there's fresh to home, and there's a decent number of people who have direct relationships with licious, and of course licious and fresh to home also list some of their products, not all, through third party platforms, but there's a decent number. Deepak, how do you look at that category, the meat and fish category, and especially in the context of direct consumer relationships?
This is hard because we did a lot of work on this. So we looked at Licious and we looked at a company called Pesca Fresh, which was a Bombay-based seafood company. I looked at Fresh to Home very quickly. And I think we take a step back. We ask ourselves in every business, can this category be branded? And can it be branded for this particular market? And then we look around the world for case studies. Again, having sort of grown up in Singapore, lived most of my life in Europe, came to India for 6 years and moved back. Again, what I've taken away, and this is just my view, even within DSGCP, we have very conflicting views. This is why I like doing what I do and surrounded by really smart people, is that I felt that branding fish and meat is really hard. Because even in the same household, whether you have the grandparents, parents, and kids, and depending on the geography you live in, I live in Singapore, which is fairly urban. So it's sort of much more urban. We may or may not have help at home. When it comes to buying meat, even today, I go to the wet market, I go to my trusted chicken wala and my fish wala, and I'll ask him, what's the catch of the day? He'll say, today it's pomfret, or today it's salmon, or today we got some halibut or barramundi, and you buy it. This is Singapore, which is very high GDP.
I do exactly that on Fresh to Home. No, literally. No, I mean,
So again,
specific
fresh to
fish.
home.
I guess the
Correct.
difference is Singapore roads allow you to go do that and not in
Correct. No,
Bangalore.
but the point, I think Rohan's point is right. You go to Fresh to Home because you built a level of trust with Fresh to Home. Then the debate became, is the fish or chicken branded Fresh to Home, or is the channel Fresh to Home?
What you just listened to was a little snippet from a great conversation that lasted over an hour. Our guest this week included Deepak Shahdatpuri, the managing director and founder of DSG Consumer Partners, India and Southeast Asia's first consumer-focused venture capital fund. We also had Ajay Thandi, co-founder of Sleepy Owl Coffee, and Sitaramanji, deputy editor at The Ken, who joined hosts Rohin Dharmakumar and Praveen Gopalakrishnan for this episode of 2x2. Throughout the conversation, they dove into some fascinating topics like whether D2C companies in India have lived up to their promise, the challenges that some of these brands are facing right now, what really goes into building a successful brand for the long haul, and how these companies can become what they intended to disrupt. If you want to listen to the full episode, you can catch it on the Ken app with a premium subscription. Besides 2x2, you'll also get access to our long-form stories, premium newsletters, and visual stories. But if you're here just for 2x2, you can get a premium subscription through Apple Podcasts to enjoy all the subscriber-only episodes we've released so far. If you've been listening to 2x2 for a while, we'd love for you to follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and share your thoughts with us. You can also write to us at 2x2@theken.com. That's 2x2@the-ken.com. Or if that's too much to ask, rating the show would also do. This episode was produced by me, Hari Krishna, with mixing and mastering by Rajiv CN. We'll be back next Thursday with another episode of 2x2. See you then.